アルプス山を踏破せし歴史は古く行きしろし東電線の活動は日本歩兵の粋と知れ敵地に追われる
Hi everyone, I'm Johnny and today we're reviewing Oba, The Last Samurai, a Japanese World War II film. The film is based on a captivating true story of Captain Sakai Oba, who held out on the island of Saipan for 512 days, even after the Japanese surrender, September 2nd, 1945. The movie starts out at the onset of the Battle of Saipan, which ran for 24 days between June 15th and July 9th, 1944. The islands were strategically important to the Americans as it placed major cities of the Japanese home islands within range of B-29 bombers. The Americans assaulted the island with over 70,000 men, and it was defended by just over 30,000 Japanese soldiers, the majority of which would be killed, though many would take their own lives as highlighted in the film. Saipan was also one of the first islands during the Pacific War the United States encountered a substantial Japanese civilian population, with nearly 30,000 civilians living on the island. Civilians suffered greatly during the invasion, many hid in caves indistinguishable from Japanese positions, and many were caught in the crossfire. This helped aid the propaganda civilians were fed that American soldiers were bloodthirsty monsters. As such, hundreds of civilians further took their own lives, flinging themselves from cliffs. Civilian deaths during the battle are estimated at upwards of 10,000. The largest combat scene of the movie comes from a desperate banzai charge of 4,000 men against the United States Marine Corps, true to history. Close combat lasted for 15 hours before the Japanese were effectively wiped out, and American forces could declare the island secure July 9th, 1944. Captain Oba, however, survived the banzai charge and helped to organize, with 46 other soldiers and sailors, a guerrilla-style war. They used Mount Tapachau as a base, which had steep cliffs and was surrounded by thick jungle. Oba held out for 512 days, surrendering on December 1st, 1945, 3 months after the surrender of Japan, following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The movie chronicles these 512 days from both Oba's perspective, the American perspective, and the perspective of some 200 civilians also hiding out in the mountains, afraid of being captured and killed by the Americans. Notably, many are held under duress by the Japanese soldiers, who reinforce the propaganda that the Americans would slaughter them, even if they were surrendering. Notably, many of the soldiers also genuinely felt that surrendering to the Americans was impossible, both for reasons of honor and for reasons based on the same propaganda. The film underscores the psychology of the fanatical Japanese soldier, while also humanizing them. Just because a soldier is devoted to a fanatical cause does not mean they don't miss their families, struggle psychologically, and wrestle with doubts. Much of the movie is a tale of physical and psychological torment as the mountain guerrillas fend off starvation and sickness, while attempting to evade or fight the Americans. The movie, despite being primarily from the Japanese perspective, at no point casts the Japanese as the protagonists or good guys in the conflict. In fact, if there was an antagonist in the film, it would be a mutual one. Both the Americans and Captain Oba are fighting together. Captain Lewis, an American officer, wages a psychological campaign in the film, trying to convince the Japanese soldiers to surrender, to save their lives. He uses leaflets and loudspeakers. Oba likewise sees the psychological breaking of his men and illness amongst the civilians. He too wants to honorably bring the conflict to an end, to save the lives of his people, or at least the civilians. But convincing his men to surrender would just as likely cause rebellion. Therefore, the mutual enemy here is fanaticism. The film is beautifully shot. The history is well told. The Japanese acting is good. The Western actors were obviously what the studio could afford, so don't expect much there. If there is any major criticism of the movie, is that it's stuck somewhere between a drama and an action film, and could have used either more character development or more action. All right, I'm Johnny. Thanks for watching. Do check out Oba the Last Samurai. It's well worth watching if you're interested in World War II history and this true story. If you want to support the channel, like and subscribe, or at least give a shout out to Lucas here in the comment section. Take care, and we'll see you next time.